Today is another opportunity that we want to look at English as a subject. But before we begin, I want to welcome you, Mr. Moore. Now, today we want to talk about a concept in Form 4 that is polite interruption and disagreeing. Now, it is true that in speech, it is normal. There is nothing wrong when we interrupt a speaker. Particularly when a speaker is talking to us, he could be giving a speech, he could be teaching us, I am doing right now. However, how we do it is what presents us as seasoned speakers or not. So in essence, we are saying that interruption is not wrong, or disagreement is part and parcel of learning. But as a good learner, how you do it is what makes you stand out as a 21st century scholar. First of all, we want to look at how to interrupt. Now, when we interrupt a speaker, we know that some people may be offended. And that is why it is important that we get to know how we go about it. And when we interrupt a speaker, for instance, introduce that interruption with the word "excuse me," or "if you allow me," or the word "allow me to act," or "how about," then you stand out as a good speaker, because you don't impose your authority. You don't disagree with the speaker per se, but probably there's something that you want to add, there's a contribution that you want to make, which is actually acceptable. Then, when do we interrupt a speaker? There are occasions that are allowed for a listener to interrupt a speaker, and some of them are one, when the speaker is, for instance, inaudible, when the speaker is incorrect. Sometimes the speaker may misrepresent known facts. For example, if somebody, all of us know about the causes of HIV and AIDS, but if somebody says something that is contrary to what is known to us scientifically, then we are allowed to interrupt. When we want to add something to what the speaker is contributing to, what the speaker is talking about, then we are also allowed to interrupt. The speaker may have left out a key concept, and as a listener you feel that this is necessary to be included, then in that context interruption is allowed. We also interrupt a speaker when we strongly disagree. When we have a contrary opinion to what the speaker is presenting, we are allowed to disagree. And lastly, we can also disagree. We can also interrupt the speaker when we strongly agree. The last two are very funny. That's what makes interruption and disagreement an aspect of learning, because we can interrupt when we disagree. We can also interrupt the speaker when we agree. So this is just the first phase of what is actually examining what our syllabus expects as candidates to know. One is how to interrupt. Number two is when to interrupt. Now, another concept that can also be tested in interruption and disagreeing is the shortcuts, the shortcomings. And in most cases, this is brought out in prose, either in a novel kind of a storyline or in a play. And I've picked this sample. I want us to use it to see how this question is normally tested. The instruction is read the dialogue below and answer the questions that follow. So we have Rehema and Aisha. It's an exchange between the two of them. Rehema is saying good morning, Aisha, which is actually commendable because we can see greeting. This is an indicator of a good speaker who wants to create a rapport. Number two, we see Aisha saying good morning, then Rehema frowning. So what is in the stage, it's in brackets. The stage directions are important here because they'll help us a lot, as we'll be able to see later. You don't look happy. What is the matter? Aisha, I've just received a call from home and I want want the learner to also mark that professionally, these 3 dots mean a lot to us in this topic. But we talk about it later. These fellows from home are always calling. My mother also called me. Aisha, well, in my case, it is bad news. My brother, the 3 dots are again here. They mark interruption. This speaker has not been allowed to say what should have wanted to say in total. And therefore, we want to see when Rehema interrupts, does she obey the house of interruptions? The same applies to here. Rehema, as I was saying, my mother called me and all she wanted to tell me is that they are fine. Then look at what is in the bracket, shaking her head absent-mindedly. That tells us something in this topic. Aisha, my brother was involved in a car accident, but you are not listening. That phrase that you are not listening is equally important. Rehema, what did you say? So Rehema did not even get what Aisha was saying, yet the two of them are actually in a dialogue. Aisha, despairingly, another aspect in brackets, I give up. So this conversation is not productive because the two of them do not end up communicating to one another. And therefore, some of the possible questions that we can use to answer this question. You can look at this question, and we want you to be keen on this because anytime this is a key question in paper 1, and anytime it is tested, it fetches on the lower side 6 marks and on the higher side 9 or 12 marks. So it means that it is a juicy area in this topic that every candidate should be informed about. Now look at how we are now answering the question. As we answer this question, first of all, we have been told Rehema, and we are looking at the shortcomings in the above Rehema's exchange. So when you look at the first response, for instance, Rehema is inattentive. This is the first step in answering the question right. Then most candidates struggle to explain. We want to discourage you from doing that. You simply need to go to the exchange and pick that line that has helped us to arrive at this. And we can see this line, but you are not listening. So who is not listening? Rehema. And therefore, this is a weakness on the Rehema's side. Now, number 2, Rehema is interrupting. For example, it is bad news, my brother. I told you that when you see the 3 dots, and sometimes those who type exams make mistakes and they have more than 3 dots. Still, look at them keenly and look at what happens afterwards. So in this context, we can see that Aisha was saying a point. Aisha wanted to communicate a concept, but Rehema has interrupted. And we now blame Rehema because, for instance, she does not excuse herself. If she would have excused herself, then that should have not been a weakness because interruption is allowed. But how do you do it? So when you check this area, and you can see that Rehema, instead of excusing herself, goes ahead to make her statement. So in that case, we say that Rehema is interrupting. And we pick the line that is before what Rehema says to support that answer. And that is how we arrive at this. Or alternatively, we could have picked this. I've just received a call from home, and again at this point, Aisha is interrupted by Rehema, and Rehema does not excuse herself. Number 3, we can say that Rehema is disrespectful or rude or discourteous. For the sake of Alana, I may advise that it is not important that we have the 3. The 3 words mean are synonyms in this topic, but it is not, for the sake of exams, let us pick the one that we are comfortable with. And look at this line. These fellows from home are always. So that statement is a bit belittling. It portrays people, Rehema's negativity towards hatred towards people who are from home. Then finally, Rehema is absent-minded. Where do we get that? Look at this. Look at this. Rehema says, as I was saying, my mother called me, and all she wanted to tell me is that they are fine. Now, what is in brackets says, shaking her head, absent-minded. So that's why I was saying that the stage directions are also important, because they can give us a clue to what we are supposed to pick as our answers. I want the candidates to note that the responses in this area are given in adjectival. And in a quick summary, if you look at this one, we have the word inattentive, we have the word interruptive, we have the word disrespectful, and finally absent-minded. All these are adjectives. In summary, what is important in this lesson is that a candidate can be guided by the following. One, as you read the exchange that you have before you, check how to interrupt and disagree politely. Number two, identification of phrases, words that mark politeness. Sometimes we have the exchange that is a bit discussive, and therefore we'll ask you to identify phrases that mark impoliteness. And then lastly, learn and practice to answer the questions in adjectival form, whether the questions ask for strengths or weaknesses. Let's meet in the next lesson.